Hi, and welcome to the GIS Center's Lunchless Learn. Today's session is titled Maps, What Makes Them Good, Bad, or Ugly. It's an introduction to cartographic design using QGIS. My name is Jennifer Strang, and I'm a GIS analyst here at Dalhousie University. What if I have questions? Please feel free to ask questions throughout the session. Just ask in the chat screen. Remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question. The only thing I ask is to be patient. Answering questions through chat can take some additional time compared to if I was answering them in person. Remember, the questions that you ask, if it's something general to everybody, I'll answer them in the general chat screen. If it's something that's specific to you, I'll start a separate session with you and we can go through that privately. So again, please just ask if you're having any issues at all. The learning objectives to this session. You're going to learn how to set up and define elements on a map page. You're going to learn about symbolizing data on a map, both styles and colors. We're going to get tips on text that you use on a map. So this can be both the text placement as well as fonts. And then there'll be some miscellaneous things that we look into, like alignment or inserting key maps or inset maps. The exercise today, we're going to be creating a topographic map of Victoria, British Columbia. So what is a topographic map? By definition, it's a map showing physical or natural features of an area, generally including contours. Here's an example of a piece of a topographic map. This map comes from the National Topographic Database. It's a 1 to 50,000 scale map. And this one is 11D12, which is of the Halifax area. So again, this is only a small portion of it, but you're able to see the roads, the contours, the place names. It's what many people would consider to be a base map. Step 1, we're going to launch QGIS. Before we do this though, we're going to create our project folder. So this is going to be the location where we put all of the data related to this particular project we're creating. To do this, we're going to use our File Explorer. We're going to create a new folder or directory, and you're going to call it Victoria_QGIS. Hopefully you've already downloaded the data through OneDrive that I sent to you through an email. I'd like you to unzip that data into this new folder. Again, the folder that you called Victoria_QGIS. Then we're ready to start the QGIS application. So in the search window, down at the bottom next to the Windows icon, you're going to type in QGIS. You're going to select the QGIS desktop application. Once it's opened, I'd like you to select the Project tab near the top, choose the Save option, and you're going to put this inside the Victoria_QGIS folder that you just created. I'd like you to call this project file victoria.qgz. Now we're ready to get started. To do this, we're going to start by going down here to our File Explorer. You can see by default I'm in my Downloads folder, which is where I want to be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder. So to do that, I'm going to go to the New app over here on the right side. I'm going to pick a folder, and I'm going to call this Victoria_QGIS. Okay. As you can see here, I already have downloaded the file. This was what I had sent to you via email yesterday. So to do this, I'm going to unzip it and put it inside of this new folder. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to choose Extract All. And then it's going to ask me where I'd like to extract it. By default, it wants to put it in the same folder, but I want to put it inside of here. So I'm going to go to the Browse icon. And you can see I'm already in the Downloads Victoria QGIS, but otherwise you just select into it and choose Select Folder. Okay, I'm going to click the Extract button. And when I do that, you can see I now have this Victoria_BC .gpkg file, which is a geo package. Now I'm ready to start the QGIS software. So I'm going to go down here to the search window. I'm going to type in QGIS. Okay, there is the application, the desktop application. It does take some time for it to open. It is a pretty big software package, so do be patient with it. But once it's opened, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new project file, and we're going to put it inside of this folder that we just created. Okay, so you can see here by default we have an untitled project. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to this project tab up here. We're going to choose the save option, and we are going to choose to save it in that folder that we just created, which was called Victoria QGIS. Okay, and I'm suggesting that you call it Victoria.QGZ. And then you're going to choose the save button, and you can see now we have a new project called Victoria, and we saved it inside of that folder that we just created. Remember, everything related to the project will go inside of this one folder. We're now ready to add the data to our new project. To do this, we're going to go up to the top and click on the Layers button. Okay. From here, you're going to click Add Layer, Add Vector Layer option. This is going to open a new window. For the vector dataset, you're going to use the Browse button and select the Victoria_BC geopackage file that we unzipped and put inside of our project folder. Then you're going to click the Add button. A new window is going to appear. You're going to choose Select All. So this is going to select all of the layers that are available from this geopackage. Then click the Add Layers button in the bottom right corner. You may notice a warning comes up about the coordinate system. Just click OK. The window will disappear, and then you can click the Close button to close the main window that you opened. Now we're ready to add our data to our project. To do that, we're going to go up here to our Layers tab, and then we're going to choose Add Layer, Add a Vector Layer. In this new window, what we want to do is under Vector Datasets, we want to browse to the geopackage file that we put inside of our project folder. So here it is, the Victoria_BC geopackage. And we're going to choose the Open button. Then we can click Add. You can see all of these layers that are in this file. We're going to choose Select All and then click the Add Layers button. Then we can choose Close to close this main window that originally opened. And you can see here we now have all of these various layers added to our map. Step 2 is going to involve organizing your layers. The order that the items are listed in the Layers window or panel are going to be the same order they're displayed on the map. So whatever's at the top of your list in your layers is what's going to be at the top of your map. Okay, so typically it's best to organize your points at the top, followed by lines, then polygons. If there's rasters, they typically go at the bottom. This is going to help make sure that all of your data can be seen. After that is done, then you need to think logically about the order so that they make sense and are visible. So if there's two polygon layers that overlap, then the smaller one should be shown on top of the larger one. If there is a road and a river line feature, then the road should be on top of the river, or else it'll look like the river's flooding that part of the street. So to start organizing your layers, go to the Layers window or panel on the left side of your page, select the polygon layers and drag them to the bottom. Then select the point layers and drag them to the top. This is going to mean that the line features are in the middle. Okay. For the line features, make sure the order is as follows, that it's contours at the top, followed by the roads, bridge, trails, railways, rivers, and ferry routes. For the polygon layers, make sure the water bodies is at the very bottom of your layers. Now we're going to organize our layers to make sure they can be seen and that they make sense. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to expand my window so I can see all the names. Remember, it's best to have the points at the top, the polygons at the bottom, and the lines in the middle. Okay, so again, I'm going to start just by doing that. Okay, and again, the order you see them in, the reason we're doing this is the order you see them in your layers panel over here on the right hand side is the order they appear on your map. Okay, so again, anywhere where I see my points, I'm going to drag them up to the top. Okay, and then my lines, and then my polygons at the bottom. Okay, and then specifically I suggested the order of your lines should be your contours at the top. Okay, and then roads, and then bridges, which is there, and railways, rivers. Oh, I missed my trails there. And they're going to go under the bridges. And ferry routes are going to go at the bottom of my lines. So again, we're trying to make some logical sense here. So again, we want the rivers to be underneath the roads and the bridges and the trails because there should always be a path over top and they should be able to be seen. The other thing we wanted to do is make sure that the water bodies are at the very bottom. Okay, so again, we're going to just drag wetlands up in my case. And you can see we have some sense of logical order to our data. So step 3 involves symbolizing the map so that it makes sense. So in that layers panel on the left side, you're going to right click on the layer you're interested in changing the symbol for. In our case, it's going to be campgrounds. This is going to bring up a pop-up. Choose the properties option and then symbology. In the box near the top of this new window, select Simple Marker. Then below, change the symbol layer type to SVG marker. Then go towards the bottom of the window and under SVG images, pick an appropriate symbol. Move back to the top and adjust the fill color and the size to make it appropriate for your map. Click OK button at the bottom of the window and then close out. Now we're ready to start symbolizing items on the map. The first one we're going to start symbolizing is the campgrounds. So what we're going to do is come over here to the layers panel on the left hand side. We're going to click on the campgrounds. We're going to choose the properties option. Okay, that's going to bring up a new window. We're going to go to the simple markers. We're going to select on that. And then just below that, you'll see now we have a symbol layer type. We're going to change this from symbol marker to SVG marker. Okay, so there you go. You just use the drop down. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here to the symbol SVG browser, the SVG groups. You can see here we've got the various options here and we can see the various images. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to use my arrow. So I'm going to pick a symbol that is appropriate for a campground. So the one I like is kind of this little tent icon. And then what I'd like to do is adjust the size and the color so it makes some sense. So for me, campgrounds should be represented as green. So I'm going to click on the fill color and I'm going to kind of pick a green option here. And then if I want to customize a little more, I can kind of tweak in here or kind of tweak down here. So I kind of want a dark green. So you can see this is going to be my new color. I'm going to click the OK button here. So now I have the color is green, but I think it's a little on the small side. So I'm going to change the size here from 2 to maybe 4. We'll see how that looks. Okay, so you can see that's a little bit bigger. I think that's probably appropriate. I mean, they're important, but not too important. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom and I'm going to click on the OK button. And you can see that there was a couple of campgrounds that appeared on my map. Oops. So there's one here for sure, and there probably is a couple others, but with all the other symbols here, it's a little hard to tell. So we've changed our first symbol, which is the campground. Try and symbolize some of the other layers on your map. If you only want to change the color, you can right-click on the symbol, choose Properties. In the Symbology option, adjust the color by clicking in the color box or the little arrow beside the color box. Remember, you don't have to keep all the layers on your map. If there's some that you don't want, you can just turn them off entirely. If you want even more control over how the items on your map are being symbolized, right-click on the layer in the layer panel, choose Properties. Under Symbology, click on the Simple Marker option that's under Marker at the top, and investigate and adjust whatever desired properties you'd like. As you can see, I've spent some time symbolizing my map. Hopefully yours is looking a little bit better than it did when we first started, and closer to what you want it to be. As I mentioned, you can have more control over your various features. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some time customizing my trails. So I'm going to select Trails over here in the Layers panel. I'm going to right click and go to Properties. And if I want some additional control, what you can do is you can pick one of these lines down here to start if you want. So you may want to go kind of with maybe a dashed gray line. Okay. And if you want to have more control, you can just simply click on this simple line, and you can see it opens many more parameters here. So you can see what our stroke width is here. So if you want to make it a little bit thinner, you can do that. You can see the custom dashed pattern here that we're looking at, as well as other features here. So again, maybe the only thing I'm going to change here is maybe I'll make it not quite so big, so maybe I'll make it 0.4, and maybe I'll change the color from gray to maybe a brown color. So again, you can kind of pick from what you want, or if you have RGB specifically you want to fill in. I'm going to just maybe pick this brown color and maybe just change it just a little bit, maybe make it a little bit lighter. Okay, so anyway, play around with it a little bit to kind of get what you're looking for. And then you can click the OK button. You can see I've got the color now, and I click OK. And you can see I have these down here in the corner, some trails that are in this brown dashed line. You will have noticed by now that the default is to color all of the features in a layer exactly the same way. Does this make sense? Well, sometimes absolutely it does, but other times maybe not so much. So in our case, we want to symbolize our roads differently depending on the type of roads they are. And I'm going to show you how to do this. So as I mentioned, we're going to color our roads based on their road classification type. So if you open the attribute table for your roads, you'll notice that there's a classification field that's there. And if you go to the documentation, which I haven't supplied in fairness to you, it tells us that the classification field that's there, what those codes mean. So 0 is for unknown, 1 is for highway, 2 is for main road, and 3 are for secondary roads. So in this particular instance, you can see there's a bunch of secondary roads that are showing. So I want to change the display of the roads based on this type of road classification. So it turns out it's pretty easy to adjust the symbols. So for us, we're going to change the symbols on our roads. So you're going to right click on roads in the layers panel on the left side. It's going to bring up a pop-up, choose properties, and then make sure you're on the symbology tab. At the top of the window, click on the single symbol dropdown and choose categorized. Okay. Next, we need to tell it in the value field what we want to categorize it on. And if you remember, when we opened our attribute table, I showed you what it looked like. It was that classification field, but it was truncated. Okay. Once you choose that, you're going to click on the classify button, and it's going to give you all your fields below. What I'd suggest you do is change the labels to what was shown on the previous screen. Remember, 0 was for unknown, 1 was for highway, 2 is for main roads, and 3 is for secondary roads. This is going to help you decide how things should be symbolized and make it easier to understand. Then you can adjust the colors or the widths or whatever other desired properties you want by clicking on the color and adjusting the properties as you see fit. Now we're going to adjust our road symbols. To do that, we're going to click on roads in our layers. We're going to go to properties. And in this panel here, instead of a single symbol, which it says at the top, we're going to go to the drop down over here on the right side. And we're going to choose categorized. Then in the value field, we need to tell it which field or attribute we're going to be basing our classification on. So if you remember, when I showed you the attribute table, it was that classification field that had been truncated. So you select that, and then you go down here to the classify button. And when you click that, you'll notice that all of the items will appear. So what we're going to do first is we're going to change the legend item names, okay? So how it appears in the legend. It's going to make it a little easier for us to symbolize. So if you remember, 0 was considered unknown, and number 1 was considered highways. Number 2 was considered a main road. And number 3 was considered a secondary road. Okay. So once we have that, what we're going to do is we're going to go into each one of these symbols and adjust them. So again, to do that, I'm just going to click on the symbol, double click, and again here I can choose what I want to see. Okay, so in my case here, I'm going to change I'm going to leave it as a simple line, but I'm going to change it to a gray color. So I'm going to start with this gray color and maybe just make it a little bit lighter. And then I'm going to choose OK. And I'm going to change the width. So again, I find millimeters a little more difficult to understand than points. So I'm going to change it to points. And I'm going to change it maybe to 0.5 points, so a very thin gray line. And then I'm going to hit the OK button. And so you can see I've got the first symbol done. Next I'm going to pick the highway. So I'm going to double click on highway. And this time I want my highway to be a bit fatter. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select on the color. And I want it a little more vibrant. So maybe I want some shade of red here. Anyway, so I'm going to get my red to where I want it to be. Okay, and you can see I'm just tweaking kind of for the color, and then I can click the OK button. Okay, so I have the color that I want, but again, I want to make this considerably fatter. So again, just because I understand points a little bit better, I'm going to pick maybe a 2-point line. So you can see it's much fatter than it was. And then I'm going to click OK. I'm going to continue doing this for the other two. So again, we're trying to create a visual hierarchy here. So I'm picking colors and widths to kind of indicate what its importance. So again, I'm going to pick the line. I'm going to kind of pick a color, maybe close to black. And this time I'm going to make it maybe 1.5. Oops, pardon me. I'm just going to pick the color as black. Okay, so a simple line. Again, I'm going to change it to points, and I'm going to make it 1.5. So it's not as thick as the highway because it's not as big of a road. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the secondary roads. Again, I'm going to start with the black. I'm going to make it a little bit gray and say OK. And this time I want it thinner still because it's not as important as the secondary roads. So or the main roads, pardon me. So you can see I've changed them all. When I'm done, I can click the OK button, and then you can see my map now reflects the fact that my highways have the red fat lines, and then the rest of them scale down on both on color prominence as well as the width. If you haven't had time to do so, finish symbolizing your map now. Remember, you don't need all of the layers that are available to you. Use only the layers you think are appropriate. Think about the size of the map that you're going to be printing. So for us, it's going to be a page layout. And whether the information is going to show up or is necessary, or is it just going to add clutter. So again, think about the point and the purpose and the size of your map when you're creating it. So step 4 is going to be creating the layout. So this is going to be the actual paper map that you're going to create. You need to get your data ready to put the map on the page with your other map elements. Those things like your scale, your legend, your north arrow, things like that. Okay. So to do that and create your layout, you're going to go to the Project tab, Layout Manager. In there, you're going to choose the Create button and name the layout as Victoria Map, and then click the OK button. Next, we're going to add our layout. So to do that, we're going to go up here to the Project tab in the upper left corner. We're going to go to the Layout Manager, and we're going to go and create a new template. Okay, we need to give it a name, so I'm suggesting you call it Victoria Map. Okay, and then click the OK button. And when you do that, you're going to see an 8.5 by 11 window will automatically appear on your screen. Page orientation. Ideally, you'd like to match the map orientation with that of your page. So if you have something that is tall, then your page should be in portrait, whereas if something you're mapping is wider than it is tall, then you'd want to have your page in landscape mode. Why? Because ultimately it's going to maximize the size of the item that you're interested in mapping. It also makes it appear more normal. Otherwise, it'll look a bit off. We want to adjust our map to portrait mode. So click on your piece of paper that's in the center of your screen. You'll notice that something appears under Item Properties on the right-hand side. In that section, you can adjust your orientation from landscape to portrait. At the Add Item tab at the top of your screen, click Add Map, and then draw a box where you'd like to see the map on your piece of paper. Then you'd like to adjust your map to Victoria, which is kind of that boot-shaped area. To do that, you're going to click the Interactive Edit button, Extent. Okay, so this is a really small button that's under Map in the Items Property panel that's on the right side of your page. Then you can either use your center roller button or the button on your mouse, or adjust the scale accordingly. So you see our piece of paper here. The first thing we're going to do, just resizing, I would like to change this from landscape to portrait because the map we want to make is more up and down than it is wide. So to do that, we're going to click on our map page, and when we do that, we should notice our item properties will appear over here on the right side. You can see here that the size is letter. If yours isn't, just use the drop down to get it to letter size, and change the orientation from landscape to portrait. Now you can see that our 8.5/11 page is now in the portrait view. Next, we want to add our map to this layout. To do that, you're going to go to this Add Item button up at the top. You're going to choose the Add Map button. Then you're going to go to your screen, and you're going to draw the box that you would like to see on your screen, however large you'd like it to be. Okay, so I'm going to try to center it there. And you can see I'm not very centered here. What I'd like to do here is I'm going to make sure I'm selecting on my map over here, and then I'm going to go over to my Interactive Edit Map Extent, which is the third button from the right. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to zoom in. Okay, So I'm going to try to zoom into what I want. And if you notice, if I zoom in too much or too little and I want to tweak it, I can adjust my scale parameter over here under the main properties. So again, if I want to zoom in a little bit, then I would make the number smaller. Okay. Okay, so I just zoomed in a little bit. If I want to zoom in a little bit more, then I can just again make the number smaller. So the smaller the number, the more you're zoomed in. And when you get it the way you'd like it, then you're probably pretty good to go. We are now on to step 5. What's up with this white area to the right of our map? Well, it turns out it's a no data zone, so the data just doesn't extend that far over. Okay, so what we want to do is just make it look like water, right? So make it disappear. So in order to do that, we're going to draw a polygon over that area and symbolize it to match the water. To do that, you're going to go to the Add Item tab at the top of your screen. You're going to select the Add Node Item and then Add Polygon. Okay, you're going to use your left button to draw the vertices or the edge of your points. You're going to do that just inside the water boundary. Okay. When you finish the polygon, you're going to use a right click to end the polygon. Okay. You will notice that a new item called Polygon appears in the items window. Make sure to double click it, okay, or you can right click and go to item properties. That works too. And then what we want to do is select on the main color box, okay, and under main properties. Then you're going to select on the simple fill option. You're going to match the fill color, and I'm going to suggest using the color picker tool to do that, to get it to match exactly to the water body's color. Okay, and then go a little further down to the stroke style and choose no line. So what we want to do here is fix this whole of the data. Again, this is just the edge of the data here. Okay, so we need to just add a polygon over top of that. But the problem is right now we don't actually know where the edge of our map is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the data frame. This is typically here by default. I don't know if I inadvertently turned it off or whatever, but if yours is the same, then what you do is you're going to select on your map anywhere, and when you do that, you'll notice the handles around the edge, so now you can actually see it. But that's only temporary, so to get it there on a regular basis, you're going to right click and choose Item Properties. And when you do that, you'll notice over here on the right hand side, Map 1 becomes highlighted here at the top, and you're now on the Item Properties tab. We're going to scroll down here, and you'll notice the frame option is turned off. So we're just going to turn that back on. And you can see it's going to put a thin black line around the edge of our map. So if I click off, you can see we now have that thin black line around the edge showing our map frame. Now what I want to do is actually add a polygon in this area. To do that, we're going to go up here to the Add Item tab. We're going to go to Add Node Item and then Add Polygon. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my polygon by using my left mouse button. So I'm just going to click wherever I want to change of direction. So first click to start, and then you can see I'm just inside the blue, which is my water. Okay, and I'm going all the way around. And when I hit the bottom, you can see there's a snapping option there that's there by default, which is great. And again, I'm just left clicking all the way around. So that's my last left click there. And then I'm going to hit right click, which actually closes the polygon. Okay. You can see by default, it's a white polygon. We want to change it to match the same blue. So because this is what's currently selected, you'll notice in the items property here, the polygon is also selected. And by default, the item properties is still on. If it's not, you can right click there and choose item properties. Oops. Now what I want to do is I want to change this from a white polygon to blue with no outline, okay, because we don't want to see this black line. So how do I do that? I'm going to select on the color swath. I'm going to select on the simple fill, okay, and you can see down here under the color of the fill I'm going to click on it. I'm going to use the color picker option. Okay, so then I'm going to click on the sample color and I'm going to hover anywhere over the blue water. Okay, you can see that it's automatically matched there. Okay, so I'm happy with that, so I'm going to use the back button. But then it still has this black outline on it, right? We don't want to see this black line. So what we're going to do is under the stroke style, here, there's a drop down. I'm going to choose no line. Okay, and you can see it disappears and now it just looks like one cohesive feature. Next, we're going to talk about map elements. Map elements are things like the title, the subtitle, key map, or location map. The scale reference, either a statement or a bar, legends, north arrows, references, credits, logos, or any other things. So these are other items that need to go on your map. So feel free to put some of these right on the map face or around the edge of the map. So again, you can do it both ways. The example we see here on the right-hand side is showing all these items directly on the map face. If you look at the National Topographic series, they typically have all of those items in a box on the right-hand side of the map. So again, this is a choice that's up to you. So when working on your map layout, consider putting some of these map elements in the Zed Zone. Okay, so the Zed Zone is the area along the top, through the middle, and along the bottom of your map. So this represents the direction in which people naturally scan a page, particularly if they're in Western society. So this is the ideal place to put some of these main map elements in the zone. So along the top, the map is typically in the middle, and then again along the bottom of your page. So also when you're putting these map elements on your page, think about visual hierarchy. Visual hierarchy is a presentation of features on a map in a way that implies relative importance. This is achieved with visual contrast. So you think about how we did it with the roads. The more important roads, the highways, we gave them a more prominent color, made them a little thicker. The less important roads, we made a little thinner and with a less prominent color. So this is an example of visual hierarchy. You can also do it with map elements. So the bigger, for instance, the text that's on your page, that indicates how important that is compared to the rest of the map. Okay, so you're going to use visual hierarchy when you're adding your map elements. So remember, what's the most important thing? Your map. And the map elements are things that tell the story around that. They're important. You need to have them there. But make sure your size and your color are giving it appropriate level of importance. So some tips for visual hierarchy. The map purpose determines what elements are most important. The inset map should be smaller than the main map because they're not as important. You're going to avoid putting boxes around legends if you can, because this will draw extra attention to the legend, which it shouldn't be required. Titles should be the biggest piece of text on your page. And do not create unnecessary elements to fill up the space. Actually, people's eyes enjoy that extra white space or blank space between. So try to keep these things in mind while you're making your map. While we're on the topic of tips, here's a couple tips on text. So you're going to design within a reasonable range of text sizes, so you're not going to go from absolutely huge to teeny tiny. The text can go on both on the map or around the map. But whatever you do, don't ever go smaller than 6-point font because people need to be able to read it, and anything smaller than 6 makes it too difficult to read. Some additional tips on text: reduce punctuation wherever possible. Why? It could be confused with map symbology. You're also going to avoid underlining as well for that same reason. Okay? If you want to make something more important, consider using a larger font or a different style. So maybe making it a little bolder than the other font on your screen. So continuing with our tips on text, lowercase is more legible and should be used for most of the text on your page. Uppercase is more difficult to read, don't you agree? Capital letters draw the reader's attention and therefore should be used sparingly because it makes your map harder to read, which is more inefficient. So you want somebody to look at your map. If they're finding it difficult to read or understand, they don't tend to spend as much time with it. It tends to produce this visual clutter, which again is not ideal for your map. You want people to be drawn into the map and not be turned away from it. Italic text is more difficult to read than Roman or upright text, but note it tends to be cartographic convention to place hydrographic features in an italic serif font. You typically will not use italics for text blocks because it's difficult or more difficult to read, and you do not use italics for language changes. Again, this tends to be a no-no because it's putting more importance on one language than another. So when you're looking to place text on your map, there should be no ambiguity in regards to the text placement. There should be no doubt what that label or information is referring to. Positioning of the text has as much effect on the map quality as does the font style and the size of your text. Text is important for identifying locations. It can refer to a single point location. It can be used to help indicate the orientation or length of a linear feature like a road or a river. And it can designate the form and function of an area. Okay, so you may want to, if you have a polygon, a large polygon that you're trying to label, you may use some character spacing between it to do that. So when you're placing labels, they should either be entirely on land or entirely on water. They should never straddle the two. Lettering should be oriented to match the orientation of the structure you're mapping or that's shown on your map. Type should never be curved unless absolutely necessary because it makes it more difficult to read. If text overlaps with other map data like lines, the data, not the text, should be interrupted. Okay? And this may seem obvious, but lettering should never ever be upside down. Sometimes this can happen if you're trying to follow the orientation of things on your map. So just be cognizant and aware that you should never ever have lettering that's upside down. So here are some examples of some bad labeling and some better labeling. So you can see that the Atlantic Ocean in the map on the left is small and tight and close to the shore, which kind of gives you a question of where is the Atlantic Ocean? Of course, we know where it is, but you can see on the right-hand side, they've chosen to spread it out and cover the entire area with character spacing. Okay, and also by using the all capitals with character spacing, it doesn't seem so prominent, drawing your eye to it. Okay, you will also notice that the labeling of the river on the left-hand side, you actually get some of that upside down lettering, which I told you never ever want to do. So what you should do is find a place on the river that's not so twisty and where you can have things a little more oriented, where it's easier to read. You'll notice at the top where they've labeled some of the cities and towns. Ideally, you would like to label those in a horizontal fashion, making them easier to read. So this is just a couple of examples. Again, this is not a great map, but the map on the right is definitely better than the map on the left. Here's an example of how good text can make a huge difference in a map. On the left-hand side, you'll notice there's a bunch of labels. Everything is labeled identically. On the right-hand side, you can see what a big difference changing some various features of the text and the labels can make a big difference. So you can see by labeling the lakes in blue, which matches the watercolor, makes them seem linked. The fact that there's italics compared to the rest of the font on there also indicates this is a different sort of feature, in this case, water. They've also spread it out so it's covering a larger area of the feature it's trying to label. You can also see that the color for the labels for the provinces and states are done in a color that matches the outlines. Therefore, you understand that those are linked. You can also see the all capital letters for the country names. And you can notice they're a little bit larger. Again, it's creating that visual hierarchy. So again, United States of America is the same size as Canada. They both have the same level of importance, but they are bigger than the names of the states and the provinces. You can also see that the size of the cities are marked in a smaller font than the capitals, and the fact that they've changed the case, it's mixed case compared to the states and the provinces. All of this makes it much easier to understand what the map is trying to tell you. When you're putting titles on your map, they should be the largest piece of text, but not huge. Okay, so balance is ultimately going to be key. Titles should be short and descriptive. Describe the area that's being drawn with regional names and maybe perhaps a subtitle. Don't use redundant terms like map showing. It's obviously a map. You don't need to state it. You don't use more than 2 types of fonts on a map, preferably one that's a serif and a complementary sans serif font. So I had to ask a cartographer friend of mine what the difference between, or how you would tell if it's a complementary font. And their answer to me was to look at the A's and the G's. So the G's can have a hook at the bottom, or they can kind of have a little ball. So take a look at that. So you want to have 2 of them that have the G's the same way, lowercase. And if you're looking at A's, you can think of an A can be a circle with a line down the right side of it, or it can kind of have a little cap and a hook with a little bulb coming out, as you see in the sans serif font. So take a look at the A's and G's of your font that you pick and make sure that they are of the same type. Okay, so remember what a serif is. The serif are the little lines that help you follow a line of text, whereas a sans serif don't have those little annotations at the ends of the letters. Okay, the fonts that are shown in this example is New York for the serif font and Lucinda as the sans serif font. So subtitles have many uses. Typically, it'll help locate your subject area or help readers identify unfamiliar titles. Subtitles should be subservient to the titles, though that means less important. So when you use your font, to make it less important, change your font size to something perhaps a little smaller. Its position, if you put it underneath, it's automatically subservient, as well as a style. Okay, so remember the Roman upright font, bolded, would be more important than a lowercase font or something that was in italics. Okay, I would suggest your title and your subtitle should be linked once you've got them done, so they can be moved as a single graphic unit. For the next step, we're going to add a title. Click on the Add Item tab at the top of the page. Choose Add Label. A new window is going to appear. You can click the OK button. A new item will appear in the Items panel. Double-click on it to make sure it is selected. In the main properties, type in Victoria, because we want the title of our map to be Victoria. Under Appearance, double-click on the font, adjust the font, style, and size to be what you desire. And then adjust the text box so that it fits the data appropriately. We've spent quite a bit of time talking about text. Now we're ready to go ahead and add a title to our map. So to do that, we're going to go up here to the Add Item. We're going to go to the label option, and then we're going to click on our map where we'd like to see that label. Okay. When you do that, you'll notice that our text gets added to our items page, and you can see down here under the item properties, there's main properties, and this is where you can change what you want it to say. So for me, I like it to say Victoria. Okay, and you can scroll down a little bit and you can see there's the Appearance tab here. Okay, so I'm going to click on the Appearance, and it opens up so you can adjust the labels and the font. Okay, so the font for me, I'm going to choose Arial font, so I'm just going to use the drop down and scroll all the way up to the top and choose Arial. Okay, I don't want it to be a regular style, I want it maybe to be bold and perhaps 24-point font. Okay, and then I can, when I'm all done, I can click off, and you can see my box was a little bit too small, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just increase the size so the whole thing shows up. Okay, so you can see there it is, it says Victoria. So now that we have the title added, we're ready to add our subtitle. The easiest way to do this is to copy the title and then paste it. Okay, and then we'll adjust it after that. So to select Victoria by left clicking on it on your map. Then you're going to right click on it so it brings up the pop-up. You're going to choose the copy option. You're going to unselect the word Victoria and then right click and choose paste. Then you're going to adjust the text and the font accordingly. So then you're going to select on the subtitle or the second Victoria. And then in the main properties, change the value to British Columbia. Click on the font under the appearance and make the size smaller and consider making it italics. Adjust the text box in the map and fit so it fits the entire subtitle. Now we want to add a subtitle. So the easiest way to do that is I'm going to select my title. I'm going to right click and choose copy. I'm going to select off of it and I'm going to choose right click and then I'm going to choose the paste option. So you can now see I have two Victorias. What I want to do is make the second one our subtitle. So I'm going to select it in the map. And then I'm going to go over here. We're going to make sure that it's selected in your items panel. And then we're going to go down here and we're going to change the main properties from Victoria to British Columbia. Okay. And then we want to go to the Appearance tab just a little farther down. We're going to click on the font. Again, we're going to choose Arial font, but maybe this time we're going to make it bold and italic, and we're going to make it quite a bit smaller, maybe 18-point font. Okay, and when I'm happy with that, I'm going to leave the window. I want to make it fit into my box, so I don't want it to word wrap, which is what it's doing now. So I'm just going to extend it, and I'm going to make the box just fit our word. Okay. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to move it over a little bit. Okay. So you can see I now have my title as Victoria, my subtitle is British Columbia, and actually maybe that's still a little bit too dark, so maybe I'll change the font from bold to just a regular font, a regular italic font. Okay, so again, we're choosing the visual hierarchy. The title should be most prominent, the subtitle should be a little bit smaller, and you can see I got a small typo here, so I forgot the I. So again, British Columbia, and now I can take a look and my map looks pretty good. Now we want to align the title and the subtitle. Select both the title and the subtitle by holding your Shift key down while you click on them. Then click on the drop-down button for the Align and choose the desired alignment type. Okay, and once it's finished being aligned, with both the title and the subtitle still selected, right click and choose Group. So it's going to make it one feature that you can move together. Then you can move the desired group to the position on your page. So we have our title and our subtitle, but we want to improve this. We want to align them. So to do that, we're going to select first one and hold our Shift button down and then the second. Okay. Then we're going to go to this second row of tools and we're going to choose the Align item. So again, the default is Align Left, but you can choose to align whichever way you want. I'm going to leave mine at Align Left, and you can see now they're perfectly aligned. Okay, what I'd like to do now is group them so I can't ever have them unaligned. Okay, to do that, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to the group option. Okay, so you can see here that I have the two items, they're selected and they are now a group, and if I move it, they will both move together. So in this case, I'm actually going to move it over to the very edge of my map, and actually maybe I'll just move it down a little bit. So you can see I now have a left aligned title and subtitle aligned with my map. Next, we're going to talk about legends. Legends should define all non-obvious symbols and elements that show up on your map. Okay, single symbols should be labeled on the map. They shouldn't be included in the legend. And another tip is you should never label a legend with the word legend. It's obviously a legend. Use something descriptive if you need to, or you don't even need to include anything at all. It's quite obviously a legend. So continuing on with legends, the symbols in the legend should be identical to the symbols on the map. They should be the same size and they should be the same color. QGIS automatically updates the symbols in the legend based on the changes that happen in the map. But if you're going to customize your legend manually, you're going to make sure that the symbols on your map are the same. Keep all the legend elements together on your page. You don't typically separate your legend into two parts or more. And you also always keep your legend descriptors to the right of the actual symbology. So here are some examples of legends. So you can see you have your symbol to the left, your descriptor to the right. You will always put your points at the top, then your lines, and then your polygons when you're organizing things in the legend. And it's best if you can put spacing in between things that are grouped together in your legend. It makes it far more legible and easy to understand for the user. Before we add the legend, we're going to rename our layers. Go to the main QGIS window to do this. Then right-click on the data name in the layers window or panel on the left side. In the pop-up, choose Rename and adjust the names so that they have no underscores and appropriate capitalization. Remember, however they appear in this layers list is how they're going to appear in your legend. Before we add our legend to our map, what we want to do is to rename the layers in our main QGIS map. So if you remember, we are actually in our layout view here. So we're going to minimize this and go back to our main window. Before we do that though, we probably should just do the save button here in the upper left corner. Okay, and then I'm going to minimize our layout. And you can see we're going to close out of this screen here. And we're going to go over here to the left hand side of our main QGIS window. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rename the layers that are in our layers option here. So to do that, you're going to right click, you're going to go up here to the rename option, and then what you can do is you can just go ahead and start typing in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove the underscores primarily, and I'm going to change the capitalization. So again, what I'm doing is I'm right clicking on my option, then right clicking, and it brings up a pop-up. We're going to go to the rename layer option and we're going to rename it. Okay. And again, what I would recommend doing is we're going to remove the underscore and change the capitalization to what you'd like to see. You're going to continue doing that for the rest of your items in this layers area. Now we're ready to add our legend. So go back to the layout window by going to the project tab at the top, Layouts, Victoria Map. Then click on the Add Item tab at the top of the page, Add Legend button, then left click on the page where you'd like the legend to go. In the New Item Properties window, click on the OK button. Then double click on Legend in the Items panel just to ensure that's selected, then go through the headings and adjust what you would like. As a minimum, scroll down to the background and uncheck it. Now that we've adjusted all of our layer names here on our main map, What we're going to do now is actually go back to our layout. To do that, we're going to go up here to the project tab. We're going to go to the layouts and we're going to pick our Victoria map. Okay, now we're ready to add our legend. To do that, you're going to go to the Add Item button or tab at the top of the screen. We're going to choose the Add Legend. Okay, then I'm going to click on my map where I'd like to see my legend. So I'd like it to be over here in this blue area. You can see it's giving me the new items. I'm just going to choose OK. And you can see here is what appears on my map. So I'm going to just move this around a little bit to be where I want to see it. Okay, maybe just not quite on the edge there. Okay, and you can see here, if I click off my map, we think about our visual hierarchy here. So this is far too prominent in my map, right? Because again, the map is the most important thing on our map. So what we want to do is we want to change our background or get rid of the background so it matches the blue of the water. Okay, so how do we do that? We're going to make sure that the legend is selected in our items tab up here at the top. Okay, then we're going to scroll down here and you see there's a background option here. I want to uncheck that. Okay, so you can see by default it went to blue because there is no outline. Okay, the other thing that we'd like to do is remove the layers that we don't want in our legend. Okay, so remember, the legend should have only the non-obvious things in our map there. Okay, so that means, in my opinion, we really don't need to see our water bodies layer, because if people see blue on the map, they naturally assume it's water. Okay, so again, both for the rivers and the water bodies, I'm going to take those off of my legend. So how do I do that? Again, I'm going to go over here to the layers property in the lower right hand corner. I'm going to scroll up and you see there's an auto update on here. I'm going to uncheck that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the ones that I don't want. So again, I also don't want this Victoria BC, so I'm going to select it and then I'm going to scroll down a little bit and there's the minus button. So if I click that, you'll notice it automatically disappears. Okay, I'm also going to do that with my water bodies as well as my rivers. Okay, so oops. So there's my rivers. Because again, if you see blue on a map, most people are going to assume that it is water. Okay, and again, we also have these toponyms here. I actually didn't turn them on my map, so we're going to get rid of those ones as well. So again, the toponyms are just the place names, and I didn't bother putting any place names on my map. So again, I'm going to select it in my legend items here, and I'm going to click the minus button. Okay, and then I can move my window where I'd like to see it. So you can see we now have our legend added. So next we need to insert our scale bar. So remember, scale is a relationship between the size of features on your map and what they are in the real physical world. So you're going to click on the Add Item tab, Add Scale Bar. Click on the location of the map where you'd like your scale loaded. A pop-up appears about the property, so you're just going to click OK. If desired, you can adjust the attributes in the Items Property window. Okay, so this could be the style of your scale, the number of divisions, units, etc. Now that we have our legend on our map, we're ready to add our scale bar. To do this, we're going to again go up to the Add Item tab at the top, and we're going to choose the scale bar option. So I'm going to select that and then select where I like to see it on my map. Okay, so it gives me a new item property. I'm just going to click OK, and you can see there is my scale bar. Okay, if I want to change any properties of this, how I would do that is I'm going to make sure that my scale bar is selected here at the top. And for me, most of this is okay. I do want my units to be in kilometers with a little k, little m. That's all good. But I'm going to change the style of this box. I don't really like the single box there. I like the line with the ticks down the middle. So you can see I've just chosen to change that. When I have it the way I want it, and I've adjusted whatever properties I want, Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that to where I'd like to see it on my map. Next, we're going to speak about north arrows. North arrows should be placed at the top of the page wherever possible. Try to keep it simple, not too fancy, unless that's the style of your map. They shouldn't be too large or overwhelming. And if the north arrow includes the letter N on it, try to use one that's in a font similar to the font that you're using on the rest of your map. It's important to note north arrows are not always necessary, and in fact are even wrong in some cases. But this depends on the map projection. So one other option would be if you choose to use a graticule instead of a north arrow to give you a sense of where north is. To add a north arrow, go to the Add Item tab at the top of your page, click Add North Arrow option, and then click on your desired location on your map. A pop-up is going to appear about the properties. Just click the OK button. The north arrow will appear on your map, likely way too large. Adjust the size of your north arrow using the handles around the edge of the north arrow, and then move it back to your desired location. If you would like to change the north arrow in the Items Property panel, go to the SVG browser, and under SVG Groups, select App Symbols Arrow, and then select the desired arrow in the SVG Images window. Adjust any other desired attributes to what you think looks best. Now we're ready to add our north arrow. Because I'd like to add it up here into this upper right corner, I'm going to move my legend down. So you can see I've just selected on my legend and I'm just going to drag it down a little bit here. Okay. Next, what I'd like to do is add my north arrow. To do that, we're going to click on the Add Item button here at the top. We're going to choose the north arrow button. Then I'm going to click where I'd like to see my north arrow appear. So I'm going to click there. It gives us a new item properties window. We're going to click OK. And when you do that, you'll see my north arrow will appear on my map as well as in my items tab. Okay. So if I want to make a change to my north arrow, if I'm not fussy about this one, what I can do is in my item properties down here towards the bottom under the SVG browser, we're going to go down until we see the arrows group. Okay, we're going to select on that, and then we can pick whichever arrow that we prefer. Okay, so I'm going to pick something pretty simple. I'm going to choose this one. And what I can do now is I can change the properties of that. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. You can see right now the fill color is white and has a black stroke around it. I'm going to change those to maybe to be a medium gray. So again, I'm going to choose my color. I'm going to pick kind of a medium gray here. And then I'm going to use my back button. And for the stroke color, I can select here and I'm going to go down, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the picker option because I want it to be exactly the same color as my north arrow. Okay, so there's my picker option. I'm going to sample the color and I'm going to go right to the center of my data there. Okay, so you'll notice it when I get it, it turns gray. So you can see there it is. And when I'm happy, I'm going to use the back button. Oh, it looks like I actually picked blue there, so I'm going to try to change that again. So again, I'm picking on the stroke color, or in fact, if I want to just get rid of it entirely, so I can again either use a sample, or maybe what I'm going to do is just change the stroke width to 0. Okay, so that just takes it away and it makes it a little bit narrower. I'm going to adjust the box, so I'm going to basically just snug it up. And then when I click off, you can see I have my north arrow added to my map. Sources and credits, they must be included. Okay, the same way if you're writing a paper, you must include your sources. You also must include them for a map. If you're going to be using logos, make sure you request one from the company. Don't just pull it off the internet, otherwise it could be a really low resolution and make your map look very unprofessional. Remember to cite not only your data sources, but the date. This will give a person looking at your map an idea of the currentness of it. Remember to credit the company and the cartographer as yourself. So some examples of formal citing on a map Could be something like the data producer, the name of the database or the source, the title of a subset if it's required, and then the format. The person who generated the file, whatever software package was used to generate the file, as well as the methodology used to generate the file, okay, and the date the subset was created. So an example would be what's shown below: Statistics Canada 2006, Census Divisions, and this is from the cartographic boundary file and the name of the file. The Indian Reserves in Canada, and it's an Esri shape file created by McMaster University at the Lloyd's Reed's map collection using ArcView 3.2 as a subset of the original data set with CSD type equals IRI, and the date March 12th, 2008. If you want some other examples for formal citations, you can take a look at the link below at https://lib.uwaterloo.ca/locations/digital/citation.html. It's also important to note that sometimes people will not put a formal citation on their map if it's being included in a paper, so the formal citation may be at the back of the paper, not on the map itself. But it's always good to indicate on the map itself some idea of where the data has come from and its currentness. To add the citation or a logo, to do this you just go to the Add Item tab, click on the desired button. So add a picture if you're doing a logo, or add label for a citation. Now we're going to add our credits. To do that, again, what we're going to do is we're going to go up here to our Add Item button and we're going to choose Add Label. Okay. Then I'm going to click where I'd like to add the label. For me, it's going to be just underneath the map. I get this new item properties. I'm going to click OK. You can see here is our label item. Okay, I'm going to make sure it's selected, and under main properties here, I'm going to change what I want to appear. To keep things rolling, I've just copied and pasted in what I'd like to see. This is a very, very abbreviated credit here, so I'm basically telling the data source, being the National Topographic Database, 1 to 250,000 scale. Okay, I've also put in my name and the date. So when I'm happy with that, the other thing to do is please realize and follow whatever convention is required for your map. But minimally, you should give some indication of the data source. I'm going to go down here to the appearance. I'm going to click on the font button, and I want everything to be the same font in my map. So if you remember, everything in my map has been an Arial font, so I'm going to scroll up and choose Arial. I want a regular style, but I'm not going to have 10-point font. I'm going to choose 8. So remember, I'm using this for visual hierarchy. It's important to have on your map, but it's not the most important. It's probably the least important for the map itself. Okay, so I've made it a little smaller for that visual hierarchy thing. The other thing I'm going to do is adjust the color. I don't want it to be black. That draws a lot of attention to it. I'm going to pick a mid-gray. So you can see, watch this, when I change it from black to a mid-gray, it kind of decreases or de-emphasizes it. Okay, then I'm going to use the back button. Okay, then what I'd like to do is lengthen this so it actually follows 2 lines. Okay, so this one does follow 2 lines, so that's great. And then I'm going to kind of put it where I want it. I'm going to zoom in. I don't quite want it that right at the top. Okay, so next what I'd like to do is I'd like to right justify this data. So I'm going to put it over here. I want everything to the right. By default it is left justified. So if I want to change that, again I'm going to go back here to my layer items. I'm going to get out of my label font by using the back button. And I'm going to, again under the main properties, I'm going to go to the horizontal alignment and change it to right aligned. Okay. Next I want to align my map and my text. Okay, my label here. It does have a snap that will automatically snap, but if you're having problems or you're concerned about it, what you want to do, in my case, I want to move my label over here to the right. And it's really important that I don't want to move where my map is. So to do that, I want to make sure my label is just to the left of where I want it to be. So I'm going to select first the label, and then I'm going to hold my shift button down, and then I'm going to select the map. You'll notice they're both selected. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to this alignment button, and I'm going to choose align right. Okay, so now if I zoom in and over, you'll see that this is perfectly aligned, which is really good. It's good for your eyes because it sees that as a continual line. So next we're going to talk about key maps. Key maps, or otherwise known as location maps. They help locate your main map in relation to a well-known geographic area or point. It's going to help you identify the surrounding regional shapes, but at a much smaller scale. It's important to realize this is a simplified map, not just a smaller version of the main map. And the area that's covered in a key map should be at least 5 times the size that's in the main map to give you a larger sense. And the main map coverage should always be shown on the key map. Inset maps. These are also known as detail maps. So they're going to show a larger scale proportion of the main map. It's often used if you've got a lot of symbology to try to show it over a larger area. You can have a more complex base map if the area is really, really detailed. So it shows at a larger scale, often with a higher density of map symbols within it. The inset map coverage should be shown on the main map so you know where it's located. It can also have its own labeled coordinates and or scale, and it can also have its own title. So now I'm going to talk about how you add a key or a location map. The process is the same for both, but because of time limitations, I'm only going to explain it in words. If you need more help with this, please feel free to contact the GIS Center. The first thing you want to do is make sure that both the scale and the extent are locked and that the layers are locked in your original main map. To do this, in the layout window, check the box next to map in the items window up the top of your right hand screen. Okay, and make sure that it's showing that it's locked. It's under the little lock icon. Then right click on the map name in the items panel, and the pop-up of the item properties below will appear. In the layers section of that window, check the box next to lock layers. Okay, and those are the layers that are currently being shown on the map, so it's not going to change when you adjust your scale when you go back to the main map window. Next, you're going to minimize your layout window and go back to the main QGIS window. You're going to add your desired layers to your map. You're going to symbolize them appropriately. You're going to zoom in and do your thing. Then you're going to go back to the layout page. So again, remember that's going to the project layout, and in our case it's Victoria map. Go to add item, new map, and add it to your existing layout. You're going to have to make sure that you lock your scale and your extent in case you need to go back and be fiddling around with your main map. Okay, so that's how you add a key or location map. If you want more details, please feel free to talk to me in the GIS Center. So once you have the key or location map on your main layout, you need to show the extent on the larger map. So click on the larger extent map in the items list in your layout screen or your layout window. Right click on the items property. Scroll down until you see overviews. Click the plus button, and in a map frame blank, select the smaller area map from the drop down. If desired, you can adjust the frame style. Again, if this sounds complicated, it's not, but if you want to talk to me about how to do it in the GIS Center, please just book an appointment or come talk to me. How does your map look? Hopefully you'll agree that the time and effort you put in, you have a much nicer looking map than when you started. So here's what my final map looks like. I hope yours looks good as well. If you want to zoom in, I'm going to just zoom in and take a look at my data. You can see here I've got my title and my subtitle. You can see I've got really nicely displayed in the way I want to. Over on the right hand side I've got my north arrow as well as my legend, my scale bar, and some very abbreviated credits. Okay, so hopefully you're pleased with your map and agree that it looks much better than it did when we first started this earlier today. So if you're happy with it, we're going to move on to the next step about how to get it out of QGIS. Likely you'd want to export your map so you can either print it out or bring it into another software package. So to do this, you're going to go to your Layout tab. You're going to choose the appropriate button for desired format. Image if you want a JPEG, a TIFF, or a bitmap, or SVG or PDF. A pop-up's going to appear, and if there are any optional parameters, you can adjust those as you would like. So now that we've finished our map, we want to get it out of QGIS. So this may mean to print it, or it could mean taking it out to another format, such as an image, a JPEG or a TIFF, an SVG or a PDF. So you can do what you need to there. To do that, we're going to go up here to our layout option, and then we're going to choose export. You can see there are 3 export options. This is going to be export out as an image, so you can export it out to a TIFF, a JPEG, a bitmap, anything like that, an SVG if you want, or maybe a PDF. So I'm going to export mine out to a PDF. And when you do that, you can see by default it's putting it in my project folder, which is this Victoria_QGIS, and it's going to give it the same name as my original project. Okay, so this is Victoria Map. That's fine with me. I'm going to choose the Save option. You can see here it's giving me all the various options. I can go through here and change if I'd like. Okay, but if I'm happy with it, I'm just going to choose the Save option. I can also choose here to click the file after exporting so I can see what it looks like. So I'm going to click Save, and it automatically popped up in my PDF viewer. So if I open it up, you can see here is what my Victoria map looks like in a PDF. Okay, so great job. Save your project. You've worked really hard creating your map. Don't forget to save your work. To do this, you can go to your Layout button and choose the Save Project option. It's a good idea to save throughout your session. This way, if anything happens, then you're never losing too much work. So you've worked really hard on your project. We want to save it. So the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to minimize this PDF viewing window. Now we're back into our layout. We're going to go up here to the Layout button at the top, and we're going to choose Save Project. Okay, and that saves the layout as well. So when you're done there, you are ready to close out of your project. And you can do that by going to the Layout, and you can choose the Close option. This brings us back to our main QGIS window. We can again go up to our project and choose the Exit QGIS window. A couple of other tips about picking your colors. Think about a color wheel. If you want to have complementary colors, these are colors that are opposite on a color wheel. So look at a color wheel and pick colors that are opposite one another. They show the greatest contrast. Triads would be putting a equilateral triangle on the color wheel, and each corner would give a very harmonious color scheme. So it's again a good way to help you start to pick colors. Another tip would be to match your text color with your feature color, so it's going to help indicate the link between the two. A really great site for finding out color information, what works, what doesn't, is Color Brewer. So go to www.colorbrewer2.org. When you're picking colors, use associative colors. So blue for water, green for vegetation. If you see white on a map, It typically means no data. Gray, on the other hand, is reserved for non-subject areas. You want to be careful to avoid stereotypes because they can be offensive to some people, like blue for boys and pink for girls. So a quick review quiz. Take a look at the two maps. Which one looks better designed to you, the one on the left or the one on the right? Hopefully you'll agree the one on the right is better. Some of the main reasons would be the boxes around. They draw too much attention away from the map itself, which is really what's important on this. So again, try to avoid those boxes if you can. And also the font that's being used in the map on the left is actually quite difficult to read. So choose a nice clean font. Again, it doesn't clutter the map up and it makes it much easier to understand what's going on. Again, we have two maps here, one on the left, one on the right. If you look at the one on the left, hopefully you'll agree that there's something distracting about it. You might not be able to put your finger on it exactly, but if you take a look on the right, you're going to see what it is that your eye is seeing. It's the fact that things aren't aligned. Your eye is really good at picking this up naturally, and if things aren't aligned, it's very distracting to your eye. So if you align these things, you're going to end up with a much more harmonious looking map. This has been quite a long session, but I want you to remember that they say that a picture is 1,000 words, but a map is 1,000 pictures. Everything you choose to put on a map and how you choose to represent it is indicating to the person reading your map how it should be interpreted. Is it important? Is it not? So everything that you do on a map is telling a story, and it's really important that you're clear about the story you would like to tell. So this is our last session of QGIS in our Lunchless Learn series. There's lots more to learn. Take a look at online material. Some of the ones that I found that I liked the most and learned the most from was the QGIS training manual. So I've indicated the link here, as well as YouTube videos that were put out by the Marine Mammals Research Association. And again, I've left you the link. So take a look at those. There's lots of other really good sources online. See what you can find. So if you'd like to contact us at the GIS Center, we are located on the 5th floor of the Killam Library. You have to go into Special Collections to find us. My name is Jennifer Strang. You can send me an email at jennifer.strang@dal.ca or give me a call, 902-494-1386. Or what's probably the most popular way to access us is through our online booking system. So you can go to www.dal.ca/GIS, and when you get to that page, you can click on the book an appointment link, and you can book an appointment with any of us in the GIS Center.